Hello, welcome to the Mistwood Publishing Book Club. I am your host, S.R. Mowry, and today we'll be looking at The Veil of Stars, Chapter 5, Preparations. So I really love this chapter. This is one of my favorite chapters because we get a really good eye into both Narbad and Talia's characters. I really spend part one trying to develop those two quite a bit because I do consider them both kind of the main characters. Narbad obviously is the main character, but Talia really is pretty darn almost, you could also call her a main character. Certainly. So Narbad in this spot is listening to his father in the first section. He's listening to his father kind of discuss the battle plans with with some of the generals of Nakvyor, Ikatop, and you kind of get a good look into, okay, when Shay says that the orcs were made, when the book says the orcs were made for war, and that's how God made them, like he made them specifically to be defenders, you kind of see that Hale is thinking above and beyond what the humans have thought of, and so it's not just prowess on the battlefield, it's also battle tactics, that the orcs are just, they know what they're doing. They are very advanced in that, in warfare. The next section is a pretty good look into Narbad, as he is just kind of preparing for the battle. He's making some of the pikes that will be used in the battle, and he's talking about how he was given a sword and shield, and how he prefers an axe. Now, he was kind of hoping that he was going to be... I think he actually says he prefers a halberd or a poleaxe. And he kind of explains why he thinks that. That's mainly because I think halberds and poleaxes are really cool. But if you can tell from the cover, Narbad's go-to will be dual axes. But at this point, he has a sword and shield, which he doesn't necessarily feel super comfortable with. But he's going to make do with it because the way the orcs do their battles, it's very organized and everyone's kind of part of the unit, kind of like the Romans did. And so, he's going to, kind of just deal with it. Even though he would prefer an axe, he's going to be part of the organ that is the front line, and so he has to do as he's supposed to do. He can't go run off and be the hero, otherwise there'll be a hole in the line and then his friends will die, his colleagues. And speaking of friends, he, after some descriptions of the environment, which I love, those descriptions, to me it paints a very clear picture of the environment. It's kind of like a warm morning with the sun. Or it's a gloomy kind of Saturday. It's kind of meant to feel kind of like a gloomy Saturday. The sun was hindered, but a few strays, managed to escape the clouds' suffocating presence. You know what I'm talking about, that Saturday morning. I felt like that kind of matched the day before the battle sort of vibe that I was going for with this chapter. You'll find that in my books, the weather often will match the mood that I want to set, because the weather really can make or break a scene. If you want to make something more epic, snow or rain always makes a scene more epic, because you can describe it, and it's very easy to describe those things in very poetic ways. So he meets another orc named Haim, and Haim is pretty nervous about the fight. And so, so is Narbad, but Narbad kind of seeing another orc who is nervous, it kind of makes him stronger almost, because he wants to reassure this other orc. And so he kind of makes a friend, and they kind of bond a little bit, and they're going to, I don't know if it says this here, but they do end up standing next to each other in the battle, so it's their bond is pretty strong. So next section of the chapter is Talia's perspective. And there's definitely a parallel here between, Narbad and Talia are both on the about to go on to something, they're about to do something that is dangerous and something that, they're nervous about, something they've never done before, and something that's quite dangerous. So seeing how they both react to it, their emotions, is a nice way to kind of learn the character and who they are. How do they react to difficult situations? How do they react to things that would scare the bejesus out of us? And Narbad, although he has some fear, he largely reacts quite bravely, especially, when he meets Haim, and he kind of, that makes him toughen up. Narbad reacts the way I think a lot of us wish we would react, and Talia kind of reacts the way that most of us would react. She's very scared. She's second-guessing herself. She's nervous. She's just kind of, she's thinking back to the old days, with her grandma. She says, "I am afraid," Talia admitted to the empty room she named her own. The churning in her stomach pained her as a constant reminder. Talia looked around the candlelit chamber and its hewn walls. Somehow their familiarity did little to comfort her then. "I can't show my fear to the others. I have to show them what I can do." Even as she watched the forced words leave her rosy lips, she knew her doubts. "Prove it to myself, more like," Talia thought. And I think that's pretty real. That's a very real reaction, I think. And so she then takes out her favorite leather strand, which she uses to tie her hair, and that comfort of something familiar makes her feel slightly more brave, and so she says, "Got to find bravery in the little things." And I think that that's also pretty real. I think that we find comfort in familiarity even in situations that are very unfamiliar and scary. So then she gets to, she joins up with her companions, which again in the last chapter she didn't think she was going to be in the companions, but Grohl was like, no, she's going to be a part of it. And so that was a big thing, which I would imagine everybody could see coming from the cover, but it's still kind of crazy how it all happens. And so now we get to see, well, she shows up kind of late, so Ruth's already kind of annoyed. And so Ruth's going through and he's telling everybody what their jobs are going to be on camp. Everybody has to contribute, and Talia is basically told, you're going to clean the kitchen supplies, and you're going to do basically the things that nobody else wants to do. And so it's kind of Ruth kind of not being very nice to Talia, but he's not happy that she's there. So he's definitely taking that out on her and kind of trying to make her regret it a little bit. And then we get to hear Ruth and Talia's dad talk for a little bit, and you can kind of see that he just has no ability to be a father whatsoever. As Bofflin comments, not one for pep talks, is he? So, yeah, we get a little bit of look into that again. And Grohl, when he's talking to Talia alone, he says he can feel her insecurity. And, then he kind of gives her a pep talk. Basically saying, like, don't underestimate yourself. Not every warrior has to be proficient at killing. you know, knowing when to strike and when to show mercy is a very valuable thing. And there's a very particular, like, Grohl's picking his words very carefully. And he's not wrong. Without Talia, this quest would fail. She is very much so a necessary part of it. And part of that is, really the big reason is because she can tell the difference between actual necessity and perceived necessity and when grace and mercy should be shown. So because of her ability to do that, it will have a very big impact later in the book. So Grohl shows that he believes in her, and so she says, maybe I should try this whole believing in me thing too. And that's how the chapter ends. So it's a chapter that really gives us an eye into Narvad and Talia and how they react to these stressful situations. And I think especially Talia, it's in a very relatable way. I think some of us do react to things like Narvad does, where we are a little scared, but not crippling scared. And when somebody who is more scared than us is in our presence, we kind of like toughen up and like try to assure them that there's nothing to be afraid of, or that I'm going to be there with you, sort of thing. And then Talia, very much so, is the rest of us, and that she is, she's terrified, and she's second-guessing Grohl's decision to have her along, and she's second-guessing whether or not she's going to be able to contribute anything. And then, she finds some comfort in a few familiar items, and then she goes to her brother, and she kind of gets shamed by him, only kind of adding to her sense of defeat and apprehension towards the whole thing. But then, hopefully many of us have somebody like Grohl who is willing to share some positivity and some uplifting, some faith in us, and to show us how we are vital. Because as Grohl says in his little speech, everything from the trees to the most complex being has value. It is a value to them by the one who made them, and because who made them. And that's really a central theme to the whole series. That people, God's creation, sentient life, has value intrinsically, inherently, because of who made them. Every life matters. And that's kind of one of the central themes of the book, the series, is that beauty, not practicality, is what worth comes from. People have value not because we can get things out of them, practical gain, but because they are beautiful. And I don't mean like little, like attractive, beautiful. I mean they're beautiful because of who made them, whose image they're made in. And I think that's really the main point of my whole series, is to kind of show that things are gloomy and dark, but there is hope, and we all have value, no matter how much we've screwed up. And I think it's a really beautiful message, and one that will be made many times throughout the whole series. So, I mean, yeah. That's kind of the overarching theme, and you kind of see that with what Grohl says. We have value just because we are made in God's image, and that cannot be understated. Anyway, there was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember it. I don't know if there will be a video next week. It just depends on what's going on that weekend. So I will keep you guys updated. But if there is not, have a good 2 weeks. We are in the month of Halloween, which is the greatest holiday of the year. So have a wonderful week or 2 weeks. Whenever I see you next, I'll keep you updated. Have a lovely, expansive time. Peace out.